I'll tell you right now, most of the mold scenarios I see are unit owners that leave their unit. They do not keep the AC running and they go back to New York or wherever they are and they go out for all summer, right? No one wants to be here in the summer when it's 1100 degrees. They want to be up north. And then when they come back, oh, I was supposed to run my AC for the last 6 months, or the AC breaks unbeknownst to them. No one's checking on the unit. Next thing you know, the walls got mold all over them. The AC systems got mold all inside of it. That is usually the most common call I get.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Policy Party. I'm Negar Sharifi, joined by my partner, Phil Masi. In today's episode, we're going to talk about mold damage, what costs are covered, what are not, and how the policy reacts when there's a claim scenario. So Phil, you sent me a situation you had, and I am dealing with the same exact one right now. So I figure we'll bring our audience into it and walk them through how it would work. I have a condo, you have a condo that recently experienced water damage. Both are covered claims. It was from a sudden and accidental pipe burst. However, my client is asking me why the full cost of the mold damage is not being covered by the policy.
Sure.
So I thought it'd be nice to do a video that I can send to them and you can share with your client as well, that talks about the difference between water property that's damaged by water damage, like soaked by water, and then property that's discovered damage by mold.
Sure. So what I start by saying to your client, my client, all the clients that are watching, mold coverage is typically 100% excluded from every property and liability policy in Florida. So these are specialty coverages. I will say that we do our best to try to negotiate what's called a mold sublimit into the property policy. We're not always successful in doing that. Really depends on the carrier and the situation. But usually when there's a sublimit added to the policy, it ranges between $5,000 and $50,000. I would say that's pretty much the range. Going to have an example where we have a $50,000 sublimit for mold, $25,000 sublimit for mold. What folks have to remember, though, is that in order for the mold coverage to trigger, the policy still needs to trigger. So you still have to have a covered causal loss. Mm-hmm. And in your example you just gave, that's exactly what that is. Pipe breaks, it's a sudden and accidental, boom, you have a covered causal loss. That right there would trigger. So then it's just when you're drying that stuff out, so the insulation out, the drywall out, and everything else, if mold grew on those things that you're drying out, a lot of times you're covering that mold because they're ripping that stuff out because it's wet. It's not good. So mold sometimes is covered just by proxy. Now, if you don't get to all of the stuff that needed to be dried out, let's say there's a hidden area that you just didn't see in your first pass, and that then grows a bunch of mold, you find it afterwards, or mold you just didn't get to the dry out fast enough, or it was just so exhaustive and it's in Florida and it's July or something and everything's humid and crazy. In those scenarios, that would trigger the sublimit, and whatever amount of damage was related just to the abatement of that mold would be covered by the sublimit. Sometimes the sublimit's just not adequate enough. It's just not enough. And there's stuff that's covered, beyond the deductible by the association. But the association's realizing this, trying to get as much of that mold sublimit as they can, I think is important.
Yeah. And oftentimes what I've asked is, especially if they have a good relationship with the water mitigation company, is this truly mold remediation? Like, can some of this maybe be classified as water damage? Like, should we, because if the limit's about to be exhausted, then maybe we do something where it's water damage. You got to tear it out and rebuild it under water damage.
Yeah. Working with and it'd be great to have one here, but working with the restoration companies, they should know their business pretty well, and having a good relationship with them is important because they understand too that our policy's got a sublimit for $25,000 for mold. You bill us $100,000 on mold stuff.
We're gonna have a problem.
It's going to be kind of important in how they set up what they're doing. So having them understand that and go through it is important. Most of those companies do kind of get that. And I guess what I would step you through now is that generally what happens is pipe burst, maybe there's some mold, the sublimit's more than adequate with the exception of the other stuff that's being ripped out anyways. But the worst case scenario for mold that I run into are going to be deals where the building doesn't have a pipe break or anything. They just, someone's looking into something and they crack through an exterior wall and they find out, hey, we're about to do some, we're looking at our siding or something. There's mold up and down all stories of this building. Like there's been external leaks for a long period of time. We've got wood rot and mold and all these issues. That is not a covered insurable peril. Like that in almost every scenario is going to be excluded because it's a maintenance issue. It's happened over the course of many years due to existing damage in the buildings, not from a pipe burst or lightning strike or fire or wind. And I'm not saying there's exceptions to that, but generally those are your worst case scenarios. And that traditionally is not covered. And that's where like you'd have to have some sort of environmental policy built for that, which, it's expensive and everything else.
Or purchase a legal liability policy in the event that a claim comes from the unit owner.
Yeah, of course. And we've made those issues before because on the liability side, which not even really getting into is there's exclusions for the mold.
Right.
If someone breathes it in, claims that they're getting sick from it. So either having a pollution liability policy on the liability side or the legal defense policy, which at least pay defense cost. And a lot of those claims sometimes aren't very real because the association, if they knew that there was mold impacting the units, they usually would do something about it. So a lot of those claims can be a little nonsense. And so you'll also get mold air test. I think it's an important thing to bring up for our clients because you'll see an owner like really having an issue with the manager saying, you have to do a mold air test in my unit. I think I'm breathing in mold and all this other stuff. The association doesn't have to do that. That is something that if a unit owner wants to do, no one's stopping them. They don't need the association's permission to do a mold air test in their unit. If they want to force the owner, really the reason they're bringing it up to the board is they want the association to pay for it. I think if the association under certain circumstances wanted to participate in that, that's fine. You don't have to.
Well,
but if you
especially if they're saying, I've seen my boards participate in the cost for the test. If the unit owner is saying it's as a result of old roofs.
Yeah, there could be some trigger words there. And again, you can pay for part of it, versus doing the whole thing. Because a lot of times when there's mold air issues in units, I'll tell you right now, most of the mold scenarios I see are unit owners that leave their unit, they do not keep the AC running, and they go back to New York or wherever they are, and they go out for all summer, right? No one wants to be here in the summer when it's 1100 degrees. They want to be up north. And then when they come back, I was supposed to run my AC for the last 6 months, or the AC breaks unbeknownst to them. No one's checking on the unit. Next thing you know, the walls got mold all over them. The AC systems got mold all inside of it. That is usually the most common call I get. And that is on the unit owner. That is not an association issue. Sometimes it can grow so it goes beyond where the unit is. But again, that's not a covered insurance peril. But that's really what I see on more often than not.
Thank you, Phil. So to recap, mold is covered when there's an insurable event, a sudden and accidental incident that occurred. Then what you need to do is either call us if we're your agent or look to your policy to see what that mold sublimit is. Because as Phil mentioned, mold is excluded on property policies unless there's a sublimit built back in. If you're one of our clients and you have any questions about mold, give us a call. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Policy Party. I'm Negar Sharifi. He's Phil Masi.